I am so very grateful to everyone who is here because it is after work hours and I know what that feels like. I kind of want to see who's really sitting there with a glass of wine that's just kind of off camera because y'all don't want anybody to see. So, but I'm not gonna point anybody out. I can say honestly that mine is coming after this. I felt like I should probably just stay within my my abilities before we got started. So let me just go ahead. Let's start the session. There we go. So my name is Dawn Callahan. I am the Director of Communications and Digital Strategy for Walker's Legacy Foundation. I am very excited to be here, and I'm sorry if you can hear my very big shepherd mix clacking away in the background. Normally she's sitting down living her best life, and today she wants to be active. So I'm really excited to be here because technology is kind of my wheelhouse. And so I can't say that I would have been excited to be here doing this part if it was something else, but I truly do love technology. So I'm really excited for the conversation, and I'm hoping that we get some really good engagement going. So before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping rules. We're gonna just ask that everyone stays on mute if you're not speaking, but because it is, again, it's after hours. Normally we do this whole post comments and questions in the chat and we get to it at the end. It's late, y'all. I feel like y'all will keep me going and we can make this really engaging if we just have a conversation throughout. And then that way, maybe I can also point you in the right direction if you have any questions and really hear from you in where you are with technology and small business. But before we even get started with that fun conversation we're going to have tonight, I want to play a really, and the first time I saw this video, I don't want to set it up for like the feature film, but the first time I saw this video is crazy because it's one of those films that you're going to remember it. It's a video, you're going to remember it, but two, it's just, every time I see it, it's like I'm seeing it for the first time. So I'm really excited. And I'm so very thankful to Goldman Sachs for sharing this video with us during the listening session. And then immediately following, and I'm going to make sure that I'm looking at my piece of paper so I get all this right. Right after the video, you will hear from Vice President, Private Wealth Management for Goldman Sachs and Company, LLC, Ada Virchula. Did I say it right?
Varcola, actually, Varcola. It's with a K.
I was over here practicing. And what's crazy is that when we talked twice earlier, in my head, I was like, you should really ask her about saying, but whatever, again.
You're doing great.
All right, let's get started. Let's watch the video and let me know if you have any issues with audio.
So I often tell this story about my mother. When she came off the midnight shift, because she worked in a paper factory, she took her clothes off outside because they smelled so bad. And she would come in, she would whisper in our ear, all things are possible. You can do anything. Now, I would guarantee you my mother did not know what subliminal messaging was, but she knew what positive thinking was.
Black women are the key. They're exhausted. They're holding up the world.
Let's be candid about this. Black women are central to the Black community. They're heads of households. They're our mothers. They are our daughters, our grandmothers, our nieces, our wives, our partners, our lovers.
There is no task more important. There is no community more innovative. There is nothing more transformational or more needed at this critical moment in our country's history.
There's a real need for job creation, not for handouts, but for hand-ups.
We are not going to advance racial equity and see the progress that we want to see if we don't focus on Black women. We looked at what are the causes, what are the sources. Is it education? Is it healthcare? Is it just jobs and making the economy better and giving them more economic opportunity? Tell me the one thing. Well, mic drop. It's not one thing.
It is just common sense to invest in our mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends, empowering the women who have invested so much in us.
And that's why Goldman Sachs is partnering with organizations led by Black women, listening, learning, and making the largest ever capital commitment, $10 billion, to fuel the futures of 1 million Black women and their families. $10 billion that will be invested in ideas, organizations, and institutions that impact Black women, starting at birth and at every key moment in her life. Access to prenatal care, early childhood education, broadband critical to closing the homework gap, and loans to enable high-achieving students to attend top colleges of their choice. And later, as these women move into the next phase of their lives, access to capital for their own small businesses, to have quality preventative health care, and ways to save for their children's future and their own retirement.
The more that we can empower these important community anchors that Black women are, the more that we're going to have progress together and as a whole.
You know, it's audacious, right? 1 million Black women, that's audacious.
If you can give people an opportunity and give them the kind of support that they need, perhaps the kind of mentorship that they would otherwise not get, they're going to do great things.
Invest in Black women.
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 Ada, I'm going to turn it on over to you. Can you? Okay, I think you're good now.
Yeah, I can hear you. Fantastic. Thank you for that, Dawn. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you all tonight. My name is Ada Varcola. I'm a vice president at Goldman Sachs, and I also serve as an OMBW ambassador. On behalf of the 1 million Black women team here at Goldman Sachs, I want to express how excited and honored we are to work with you. Thank you so much for the partnership throughout this initiative. So we launched 1 million Black women in March 2021. The initiative commits $10 billion in investment capital and $100 million in philanthropic capital to impact the lives of at least 1 million Black women over the next decade. This is the largest investment ever focused on narrowing the opportunity gap for Black women at every stage of their lives, from early childhood through retirement. Our Black womenomics research informed the areas where our investments will be made, including healthcare, job creation and workforce advancement, education, housing, digital connectivity, financial health, and access to capital. It estimates if we narrow opportunity gaps for Black women, we will narrow opportunity gaps for all and drive economic progress for the country as a whole, creating over 1 million new jobs and increasing GDP by over $300 billion. The investment strategy is rooted in research, and we will partner with best-in-class organizations to continue researching the interventions that positively impact Black women in a meaningful way. Moreover, we will partner with Black women leaders and their organizations across the country to ensure that 1 million Black women will be informed by, reflective of, and responsive to Black women's viewpoints. As the name suggests, the reach and impact of this initiative is quantifiable and measurable, and we are committed to tracking and sharing the results of our efforts on a regular basis. While this is a 10-year initiative and we are just getting started, we announced our first investments and grants earlier this year. I'd like to spend a moment highlighting a few. I'll start with the partnerships that we embarked on. So we have an entrepreneurship partnership with Aisha Curry Brands, Eat, Learn, Play Foundation, and Lendistry to facilitate access to capital for Black women in hospitality. We have a research partnership with the Ruth J. Simmons Center for Race and Justice. We also have a partnership with Echoing Green, an early stage funder of emerging social entrepreneurs, to launch a cohort of 5 1 million Black women fellows focused on our impact pillars. I'll move on to the investments that we've embarked on. So the first one is Archer Towers. They received an investment to fund the construction of a mixed income residential development in Jamaica, Queens. We recently had the groundbreaking ceremony for the development, which will provide access to quality, affordable housing to hundreds of Black women and families. Housing is intrinsically connected to better health outcomes, economic mobility, and employment prospects for Black women. Residents will also receive workforce development and training in partnership with Greater Jamaica Development Corporation, and rent reporting to improve credit in partnership with Isusu, a mission-driven, minority-owned startup. Our second investment was with Block Power Wi-Fi. They received an investment to expand broadband services across the Bronx and Upper Manhattan with a focus on low-income neighborhoods. The lack of affordable broadband access leads to barriers to education, employment, banking services, healthcare, social networks, and other services for Black women. Our next investment was to Collab Capital Fund One. They received an investment to fund investments in Black founders building innovative, high-growth companies. Currently, Black women start businesses at the fastest rate of any demographic, but receive 0.27% of venture capital funding. I'll move on to the grants that we've extended. So Buy From a Black Woman received a grant to continue website development, social media education content, technical assistance, and grant funding to small Black women-owned businesses. Center for Maternal Health Equity at Morehouse School of Medicine received a foundational grant to directly address the disproportionate maternal mortality that Black women face in comparison to white women. 60% of maternal deaths are preventable, and this investment will seek to reverse this troubling statistic. Finally, Springboard to Opportunities, Magnolia Mothers Trust, received a grant to fund the next iteration of the Magnolia Mothers Trust program, which provides Black mothers living in extreme poverty with a $1,000 monthly stipend to help lift them out of poverty. So we are focused on investing to impact Black women's lives and narrow opportunity gaps. I look forward to hearing your thoughts, ideas, and your feedback for how we can do that. Thank you so much, Dawn, for giving me audience.
Thank you so much. And I am so going to sidebar with you on all of them. I couldn't write fast enough on these. I was like, oh my God, all of these sound great. I want to know more. I want to know more. So again, I have pointed out a number of times that it is after hours. And so I am not going to be a talking head because I think that you would be terribly bored with me. The only person that loves my voice is my mom. So I really want this to be not only interactive, but I want to make sure that not only do I hear from you, but minimally when you walk away, you have some actions, right? Some actions that I know, what I tell businesses that I know that could be helpful. So let me back up a little bit. So I work with Walker's Legacy founder work for, but everyone in the Walker's Legacy family in the leadership role is also an entrepreneur, which is why it's so great for us to be in a position where we can support women who not only look like us, but are going through the same situations that we have either gone through or become stumbling blocks for us in the future. So it's definitely a great opportunity. But one of the things that I do too, to have two businesses on the side, we all have something on the side, right? So 2 businesses on the side is one is an e-commerce business, and another I work with small businesses, helping them with their digital footprint. So clearly, again, why I was so excited about this, because I talk to people all the time who are not aware of just some basic information that you should know. And so I felt like tonight I can engage you in conversation, because when someone says come to a listening session and share your thoughts on technology, people typically don't know what they don't know. So you're not really sure, like, well, what am I supposed to tell Goldman Sachs, right? So that they can be helpful. So I figured I would throw some things out and see if it sticks. And if you didn't know about it, now you do, but it also gives Goldman Sachs an indication of where we all are. So that's my plan. I'm gonna stick to it. I am also going to allow everyone the opportunity to come in and talk, so that it can be as interactive as we need it to be. So let me just make sure everyone is. Yep. Okay. So please feel free to chime in. So let's go ahead and get started. So, I meant to say, so we're going to talk about marketing/brand, logistics and operations, and then cybersecurity, which no one ever wants to talk about. So of course, there's a big need for us to talk about it, right? So marketing and the brand, right? So, one of the things that I used to do way back when social media first started was, talk to small businesses and explain the need for them to have a digital footprint. And the feedback that I would normally get is, I don't have the time, right? And as an entrepreneur, time is of the essence, because you're typically, managing more than one project. It's unlikely for us to quit our jobs and get a relative to write a big check and just say, hey, go make it happen. I mean, typically we're doing this simultaneously, right? And so the feedback that I would typically get is that people say, I don't have time. Well, it's equivalent to back in the day. I don't know how old I am. I'm dating myself. If anyone is familiar with the Yellow Pages, which would be for anyone who is not familiar, my interns, we have this conversation all the time. The Yellow Pages was literally a book that was delivered annually to your home, and it had a list of all the businesses. It was a big deal to be in the Yellow Pages. This is a thing. So now what has happened is that you have these social media platforms that is going to give you this edge, because 1, the Yellow Pages you had to pay for, and 2, social media is for the most part free of charge. And the reality is that even if you are not quite aware of how to set up your business, you do understand just in your everyday life for the last 10 years that social media is a thing, and it is not a thing that is going to go away. And so we equate a business with having these tools, right? And so if you are in a place where you're thinking, oh, I can't do it, it's something I'm pushing aside, I'm saying push it back up to the forefront, make that something that you do. Can we just see in the chat if anyone wants to, if you can mention whether or not you feel comfortable with your social media digital space that you're in right now? Do you feel as if it's sort of kind of getting away from you? If you are, and again, I'm a digi, which means that I stay on top of all the platforms, everything that comes out, and it still gets away from me. So don't feel a certain kind of way about that. Facebook tends to change their algorithm on a regular basis, which means that as soon as you figure it out, they're going to change it. And so it does become a little intimidating. And so what I tend to tell folks is that you don't have to know them all, right? It is not your responsibility to be a guru on all the platforms. You just need to find one that works for you and your audience, and make that one your thing until you get to a place where you can outsource it to someone who can do it for you on a regular basis. But let me see if anyone, yes, it is absolutely needed. Yes, don't even get me started on Twitter. Twitter is like Alice in Wonderland. I will get on Twitter and just tumble down a rabbit's hole. One thing leads to another thing that leads to another thing, and then all of a sudden I'm not working. So yes, we all have our favorites. I would like to say that depending on the type of industry that you're in would matter, again, the type of platform that would work for you. One thing that I do want to say, just a little tidbit that I do tell clients, is that the only platform out there that does not use an algorithm that is going to determine how the feed appears is Pinterest. It is something that a lot of people don't take advantage of. So you don't have a Pinterest account, I would think about it. And it works across industries. I know you're probably thinking, oh, I don't have a picture of what I do, but if you have an image that can connect to your website via a picture of the website or your logo, you'll do just fine. So trust me when I say you heard it here first, Pinterest is the way to go, but we'll get back on task. I am very curious, which is why I highlighted this, to see how many people have a Google My Business account. Or if anyone has a Google My Business account is, I guess, maybe a better question. So let me say, not yet. So let me say that if you don't do anything over the rest of the weekend or the rest of this week, look into getting a Google My Business account. So basically what it is, when you go into your maps and you look up a business, it's going to appear through the Google My Business, right? And so a lot of folks think like, oh, I don't have a brick and mortar. So the reason that it was initially started was to let people know where these brick and mortar businesses were, right? And so now as a service, you can have a Google My Business account. And why is this so important? Well, Google is king. So and I tell this to people all the time, Google is king. So anything that Google is offering that has to do with your business, you need to look into it and see how you can be affiliated with it. They're the biggest browser. The amount of traffic that comes through Google is just, it's insane. And so just like we have our favorite, friends and family members. And so when we get access to information, we're going to give it to our friends and family first, right? Well, Google's the same way. When it's time for them to push SEO, now, let me just say for the record, legally, no one has said this because Google does not put out how their algorithm works, but I will say that they are friendly to people who utilize their services, right? And so if you have that set up and someone is searching for the type of industry that you're in, you are going to be more inclined to be pushed up. Am I promising that you're going to be top first on the page? I'm not promising that, but what I'm saying is that it's going to move you up. It's going to affect your SEO. It is going to help with your results. The other thing that you need to keep in mind, should you go and follow my advice and create this page, is that Google My Business is like a social platform, which means that you can post updates. If you have any promotion, sales, whatever, again, Google My Business. I can't stress it enough. Yeah, it's everything plus some. So I'm going to get off of that, even though I could talk about it all night. So social credibility, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up. So how many people have been torn between them, the person, the owner, with your own name and identity, and making that blend with your business, right? So I hear a lot of folks say, oh, I don't want to have this associated to my personal accounts, or I don't want this associated with my LinkedIn personal account. So I don't want to, do this cross marketing. And that's fine. Everyone has a preference on how they do it. What I can say is that you can do both you can start out with it being connected and then branch out, or you can start with it being unconnected and try to connect it. I mean, it really just depends on the industry, in my opinion. The reason that I'm bringing this up is that there is something called social credibility. And that is basically what we all do every time we hear about a business. Before we make a purchase, we see something that pops up on our Instagram. The business doesn't look like something we're familiar with. And so what do? We look for websites, we look for Facebook pages, we look for all of those things, which is basically social credibility. So when you are thinking about the type of social media platforms and all of the, Google My Business, and whether or not you're going to tie it to your personal brand, if you have a lot of followers, I would tie it to your brand. And it doesn't have to be that you come out and be like, hey, this is mine. It can be something that a page that you're an admin of. And there's various ways that you can do it, but it takes a lot of time to build up that. Everyone has like a social score that, that's associated with how often you're going to appear on in browsers. And that's getting way deep into the back of websites. So I don't want to go down there, but just the only thing that I can say about that is that you may want to consider that if you're on the fence. And you can share in the chat and just say, if that's something that you have been struggling with. I'm really curious because I do tend to hear that often. And then the last thing that I want to mention here is promises, promises. And so I get very, very sad when I run into a business owner who has been sold the dream. And the dream is basically I'm a digi, so I know all of the vernacular that I can say to confuse someone when it comes to anything digital, right? Because if it's not something, again, every industry has their own jargon. So the thing is that of course someone, you need people like a social media person to come in and help, because it's a lot. And the last thing you want to do is try to figure out how to get your placement up or A/B testing when you actually need to be running a business. So I am definitely, a component of bringing in someone to do it. If I can pay them and it can get done, the value is my ability to think of the other things. What I want to say is that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I've heard a lot of people sold, dreams of, oh, I promise to make you viral. All you have to do is do this. Another one is paying for someone to give you logos or designs and not having your original files. I mean, these are things that you need to be very cognitive of. If someone is reluctant to promise to give you your original files, that is not your person. I know a lot of people want to use Fiverr. You have to be careful. I think that is a great tool, but I had someone try to create something for me there, and they literally gave me the Victoria's Secret logo. I kept looking at it like, this looks really familiar, and I couldn't figure out why. Yeah, because they were trying to get me sued. So you have to be very careful when you are contracting out with folks, especially when it comes to marketing, branding. And again, I would love to hear if anyone has had any issues with outsourcing when it comes to, trying to get your marketing together or your brand together. What has your experience been like there? Share in the chat so that we can share and we can really hear from you guys. So any questions before we go over to logistics and operations? Susan, yes.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So thank you. About the Google My Business, does that matter if you haven't launched your website yet? Like, I'm primarily digital, so I started off just using the social media channels, but when you're talking about like cybersecurity and things like that, I want to have an accessible website. So I've been kind of like pacing myself. So what does it mean to, like establish Google My Business depending on where you're at?
Okay, that's a really good question. So Google My Business, let me put it a different type of way. So it didn't come out in the purpose for Google My Business is not what I'm suggesting for you. So let me just put that out there, because you'll go back and you'll be like, I don't understand how it even come to be. So Google My Business was again in place for brick and mortar only type businesses, right? So that these businesses could advertise and showcase exactly where they are located, because again, we're all mobile. And so people would go and they would search and they wanted it to make sure that it came up in a way that people would be able to get it, right? Get the information. Well, now you can still use that platform, the Google My Business platform, and put your business information. So like now, since everything that happened over the last couple of years, you can identify as a Black-owned business. You can give your business hours in there. You can connect it to your social media platforms. And then if you have products, like if you're on an e-commerce site, you can sell your products through the Google My Business account as well. It also connects to your Google Analytics. It's just another form. When someone goes in and types in bright red shoes and you sell red shoes, for when they go into that search, that the spiders that do their thing, and they're literally like spiders, when you type in anything into Google, the spiders go out and they look for all the information that has to do with the search. So Google's priority, their motto is customer service first, right? They want to make sure that the customer is getting their return on the time that it's taking for them to stop and search. So they are constantly looking for the most relevant information. So what I suggest to clients is that, again, because it's already connected to the largest browser, why shouldn't you take advantage of that as well? So basically what you're doing is you're going to set up your business information. Do you need your website connected to it? I don't think that that's a criteria. What I know for sure that you will need is an address. They do verify your address. So like a little postcard will come in the mail with a code. You go in, you enter the code, and bam, you're verified. But other than that, it's just another space for you to be able to increase your SEO, to increase your placement when people are searching for the type of services or products that you offer. Is that helpful?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's go on to logistics and operations. So again, and let me just say, Google does not pay me to be promoted. They should, but they don't. I share this information because I know what is best for what you're looking to do. And there's there's other browsers out there. I'm not saying don't use them, but I'm saying that, I'm not a fancy person, but I do tend to go for the best when I want to spend money. And so I don't want to play with the other ones. I want to go to who is going to serve. And Google has been that and as a constant for years now. So the reason that Google Drive is the first thing on there is because I remember when I started my business. When I first started my business, it was just you're doing so much, right? And so sometimes it's hard to slow down, back up and say, okay, I need to compartmentalize this. I need to make sure this is here. I need to make sure I can access this and so forth. We tend to be working and as a one-person entity. And so the good thing about the Google Drive is that it was created in a place for someone who could pay for the type of services that Google Drive does. So it really is here for small businesses. So if you are, especially if you are a new business, I would say to make sure that you start a Google Drive and start collecting everything, all of it, separated into folders. And the good thing, again, with Google is that you can create your business, have a business account with Google or Google, I forget what it's called, but it's basically the business branch of it where you can have the emails and, under your business name and so forth. And it's great because most people are familiar with working in the Gmail platform. You can do video conferencing in the Google platform. I mean, there's just so many things. You can create forms. And again, free. I can't stress it enough. Like, again, the Google Drive is a cloud-based operation that is equivalent to, platforms and servers that big, Fortune 500 type companies use, but it's accessible to you. And they have Google Class. I mean, they have Google everything. We tend to use Google for, like, if we're collecting information, we want people to fill out forms. We do so much in it. So I just want to stress that, especially if you are a new business and you're looking for a place to house, and please share in the chat and let me know. Yes, I use Google Drive to stay organized. Yes, that is everything for us on our end. And the good thing, again, about it is that because it's on the cloud, which is life nowadays, it's always accessible to you. And again, I can't stress that enough. So I'm going to move forward because I do not want to hold us longer than y'all want to be here. Airtable. If you're not familiar with Airtable, it's Airtable, Asana, they're project management tools. Airtable, I know, has a free version. Again, it's a great place if you have a big project and you want to centralize everything. Let me know in the chat what you are currently using, if you are using anything at all as far as project management needs. Maybe it's something that you haven't really thought that you need to do, but if you find yourself sort of I'm an artist, so I'm always sort of kind of all over the place. But I always know when it gets to be a little too much and I need to pull it in, I need to reel it in. It's because I haven't done my back end work of creating a work plan so that I can streamline. And so I can make sure that whatever I did, in the spring, I don't have to figure it out again in the fall, so you want to make sure that you're creating, again, indirect policies and procedures for your business. And as you grow and as you continue to scale and you can bring someone in, you can get someone to help you, polish it up. But for right now, it's a great way for you to just start keeping track of everything. Love it. Monday.com. Yes, Monday.com is great as well. Love it. I didn't want to do that. Okay. Air legal. Just want to touch on it really quickly. You don't want to go low when it comes to legal. What I would tell small businesses, I talk to a lot of small businesses that provide services and like consulting and so forth. And when I first started out back in 2007 was my very first business. I remember I did not have a lot of money for the legal everything that I needed to take care of. And so I reached out to a small business attorney who I paid for them to create a template for me that I knew was legally binding, but it was something that I can update and edit. And so consider those options if you are, I just want to say there's tons of options out there, but don't ignore it. I can't, like, ignoring legal is like ignoring finance. And let me know in the chat what, if this has been something that, or how you've been working. Do you have an attorney? How do you decide what you run past counsel? Because I know for sure that most small businesses don't have the funds to, call the attorney up and just say, hey, we need to have a 2-hour meeting when they're charging, $250 an hour. So I'm really curious, what do y'all do for your legal needs? Is anyone using like a legal Zoom or anything like that? Or maybe you do have counsel. Like, what do you do around that space? I'm really curious. One thing that I know that I am very guilty of is researching documents and copying the documents off of Google. Susan, you had your hand up.
Yes, I was just going to share because it's easier than typing it in the chat. But I was going to say, so I started with LegalZoom. So Aim High SDC is Startup Digital Consulting, and it's a consulting firm. Basically, I help small business owners, Black, Brown, and Indigenous, find and apply for like grants and help them get, organized and direct them to the right resources. So I started with LegalZoom to create my contracts, but then I started locally too with my city and the economic development team, and they have partnerships with different like law firms and nonprofits. So I have a pro bono attorney who's looking over my documents, and he's from Goldston and Stores. So I encourage people to start locally, see what your city's doing, your library's doing, so that you can get that initial support.
Yes, I love that. That is awesome. And and I also want to say I leverage my attorney as I have specific needs. He's really good at coaching me towards other low-cost sources. Okay, that's wonderful. Subscribe to my attorneys. Oh, that's smart. Subscribe to an attorney's podcast. Yes, I love that too. I'm all about the free, y'all. There's so much information out there. I started with LegalZoom, secured a pro bono attorney. And the other thing that I want to say, I don't always do a good job of making sure I have the correct legal information. That is so funny. Hey, L. Davis. What I will say is that SCORE is a great place to go to get directed to some resources, some free resources as well. And if you're not familiar with SCORE, it is a mentoring program through the Small Business Administration. And I love them. I love them. I love them. I can't say enough about them, but they're a really great resource if you need resources and you don't really know where to go. They, similar to what Susan was saying, that they will offer you. Yep, score.com for business. And they're phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal. Love it, love it, love it. And then the last thing I want to touch on here, which even as I was putting this together, I was thinking like, do I want to put Visme and Canva under operations or brand? But the reason that I wanted to talk about it here is because, again, we represent you. I know that you are president or CEO, secretary, janitor. When I first started one of my business years ago, I had another email that went straight to Ann. Ann was my assistant who would take care of all of my appointments, but I was Ann. So I would just be replying as Ann because I didn't want them to know that it was just me working a solo business. Not that I'm sure that they would care, but anyway, one of the things that I know is that you're wearing many hats. And so if you're not familiar with Canva, I would highly suggest you look into it. It's a really great tool for people who are maybe challenged in creating graphics. They have tons of templates and graphics that you can use. And when you get to a place, I mean, and let me just back up before I go to Visme. Canva, the magic that you can create in Canva is beyond your imagination. I can't even stress that enough. I mean, we have made commercials for Walker's Legacy between Canva and Visme. There's so many things that you can do that look so sleek and clean. But again, I know you're wearing many hats. So if you are on the fence about, oh, do I pay this person to create Facebook posts for me, or do I ask them, do I challenge someone to create like templates? I would have someone create templates in Canva. You create your Canva account, have them create those templates for you. So it's something that you can manage yourself and just sort of kind of change it up, but it's already, the hard work is already done. And Visme is just a whole nother level. Like once you graduate from Canva, I highly suggest Visme. Has anyone has anyone heard of Visme? Visme is like a Canva, but on like a drug, I don't know. It is, what they offer is just phenomenal. So I'm going to just add it. I've never heard of Visme. Yes, you definitely want to check it out. I have had funders after they've seen our presentation in Visme and just stop and be like, whoa. And I'm not even joking. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, you know, after the fact, and I'll make sure that you have my email address. But if you want to see some of the things that we've created in Visme, actually, you can just follow us on our social media pages, because we're constantly doing like any commercial that you've ever seen come out of Walker's Legacy. And we be putting some stuff together, y'all, internally that be looking like we spent a whole lot of money on it. It's not the money. It has everything to do with the creativity and the bandwidth to just let your brain think. And again, I understand that we're all in the boat of being multiple people, but if you can find someone that you can outsource or whatever, I don't know. I'm just telling you, I'm not trying to sell it. Again, nobody's giving me any type of payment for me pumping their businesses up. Okay, so lastly, I want to make sure we have time to touch on cybersecurity, because this is mega important. Now, before I even go into what the House did, I need to know, honestly, how many people out here using stuff like password as a password? Like, tell the truth. Because I know that there's some people out there. And it don't have to be the password, but like, it's like, I love grass, 1, 2, 3, or you're using the same password over and over again for various platforms, which we all know that is a no-no. Or we're still using words. No, not at all. I love it. Yes, thank you. Thank you. I wish this was the demographic that I talk to a lot, but a lot of folks don't understand the dangers of cybersecurity. So the House just recently approved the Cybersecurity Awareness Act, which basically came to be because of COVID. What hackers know is that the small business is the backbone of the economy for the United States. We all know that, we love that, that's great. What that also means, though, is that it's a collective, which means that it is made up of a lot of small businesses which do not have the funds, the capacity to make sure that their cybersecurity is taken care of. And so basically what happened during the height of COVID is that they realized that we were being hacked a lot more frequently than before. And so they're like, hey, we got to do something about this. And so not only did they pass this Awareness Act, but they also passed the Small Business Development Center Training Act, which basically is rolling out a cybersecurity counseling certification program. So basically what that means is that they are going to make sure that you have all the tools that you need in order to make sure that your business is secure. This is new. If you haven't heard, I mean, new as in like the last couple of months. I remember when it first came out, but it's still relatively new. But I would keep an eye out, and I'll make sure that when we do see more information, that Walker's Legacy will share that information with our followers. But I think that it would be highly recommended that if you cannot go through that certification program, that someone on your team goes through the program. I definitely will be making sure that I go through the program to make sure that I am aware of everything that I need to know. Coming from the city of Houston, where I worked in the mayor's office for a little over 7 years, we would have to have these trainings to go over what the possible threats look like. And I know that there are trainings. Has anyone ever gone through a cybersecurity training at all? I know that they're offered. Yeah, that's good to know. Again, because it's one of those things that we put on the back burner. So just some red flags to consider as a threat that you may not be aware of. But one of the things that one of the tools that, well, let me back up before I go into red flags, but one or two of the tools that I use to make sure that I'm, keeping things safe, but I'm also not having to duplicate the same information over and over again, because I don't want to keep a list of passwords, is that I take advantage of Google Password Manager. I'm not sure if anybody is familiar with that, but it's extremely helpful. And like sometimes if you go into an account and it says, give me a new password, it will suggest a password. And it's something that's so crazy looking that you're like, oh my God, there's no way I'm going to try to remember this. It is a great tool to use. And I also use the passwords on my cell phone, the password feature. So anyway, just want to add that little tidbit, but some red flags to look for is, and I put Norton here because I have Norton. If you don't have some type of malware on your computer, please, 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 please take care of that. Not only for your business, but depending on the clients that you work with, you could really be putting them at risk. Trust me, I have known some very, 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 very big corporations who have been, what's the word? Blackmailed. Yes, that's the word. They were blackmailed and they had no choice but to pay it because of the contact information that was in there. So you definitely want to make sure that you have protection on your computer. That's not something that you want to play around with. And I want to say that that is it on cybersecurity. So that's it on, that is it. Do we have any questions? I know I talked like mega fast. I get it from my mother. Yes. Yep. Working for it. I mean, I think just about anyone who works in anything having to do with government, they are very big on making sure that we know all of the threats. I mean, we've had to watch hours and hours upon hours of video on the various ways that hackers are working to get into, just to infiltrate. And it's bananas. So highly recommend it. Was there anything that I went over that maybe I went too fast or needed some clarification or you wanted to share? Again, I want to make sure that you share your experience as much as possible because we're using that information for Goldman Sachs to be able to serve you best so that we can make sure that we hit that goal. Okay. Oh, Susan.
Sure. So when it comes to things like this, so I know what it means, like if you work in a public safety group and stuff like that, but as a small business owner, do you have any idea about what it means to budget for things like this in terms of like that software, or is it like going through each one? Like I know Norton antivirus, like maybe if you get like it annually versus like monthly, do you have any guidance on that? Like how to budget for it?
So I would say that, Norton is annually, and I want to say that depending on how many devices you want to protect. So right now, I think that my Norton is maybe, I want to say maybe it's like between $125 and $150 annually. So it's not bad considering the risks, right? Like I do tend to work with clients who would definitely not want their information shared. So for me, it's more of an investment, right? I do know, and what I'll do, Susan, is I will check and see if there's some late and great. I know that there's a couple out there that doesn't cost anything and they're still good, right? They're not Norton, but they still do what they need to do. And you may not be able to cover multiple devices like I can. I can cover my cell phone, desktop, and 2 laptops, and I think my iPad with my subscription. But again, if you're doing majority of your work out of one device, it's probably okay. I do want to stress that we want to protect our cell phones. We do a lot of our work on our cell phones and we don't really think about it. So I have a VPN on my cell phone, which is, just again, protecting my cell phone, like as if it was protecting my laptop or so forth. So
that was great because I didn't even think about my cell phone. I was only thinking about the laptop. So like, I really appreciate that insight.
Yeah, no, we do so much on our cell phones. And so one of the things also, like when we're texting for work, we only text through WhatsApp. We don't do like any work related text. I won't, if someone from the office texts me just a regular text, I send them to WhatsApp and have them write the question all over again. Cause I'm like, we have to be very diligent about making sure that we're doing our part, right? Because if someone infiltrates, that's one thing, but again, we just have to make sure we're doing what we can. Okay, so I want to say thank you, big thank you, because again, I know that you all could be probably doing just about anything. Well, you probably, knowing you as an entrepreneur, you'd be working on your business. So this is probably a nice little, siesta for you before you get back to work. But I do want to say that we have an event coming up on December 16th on confidence, making the most of your potential with Carlicia Wright, who is amazing. And so if you have not registered and you're interested, please feel free to go to Walker's Legacy to register. We have, we started with coins. No, we started with connections with Shalea Shipman, who also works, she works with us in a number of capacities, and she did a fabulous presentation. And so I'm expecting this to be just as great. But if you are not familiar with Walker's Legacy and you want to make sure that you're staying connected, please feel free to text Legacy to 66866. And we will make sure that we get you signed up to our newsletter so that you can learn about all of the great happenings with Goldman Sachs. And so because we are a partner, we will get information that we want to share with you and we would want to get back to you. So if this is your first time with us, especially make sure that you stay connected with us. And this recording will be available on our YouTube channel, which is just Walker's Legacy at YouTube. I do want to say thank you very much to Goldman Sachs. Ada, thank you so much. You were just fabulous. And thank you for your patience with the Walker's Legacy team as we pull this together. We had some technical issues, y'all, but we worked it all out.
You guys are totally amazing. I just do that.
Love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And again, I am so available to y'all. Like, I love talking about all things technology. And if you have some questions that you just, that pops into your head after the fact, please feel free to reach out to me or reach out to anyone on the Walker's Legacy team. If you have any questions pertaining to the Goldman Sachs initiative, please feel free to stay connected with us. Again, we tight with Goldman Sachs, y'all. Like we BFF, so we can reach out to them. I know me and Ada, like we old friends now. So
yeah, we are all the way.
Thank y'all. You all have a great night. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and stay blessed.